I want to welcome everybody to our workshop today. We're talking about how important it is to constantly reinvent a company, to constantly maintain sustainable differentiation, but we're really focused today on AI. And AI, I believe, is going to be the most major technology innovation we've seen in our lifetime, the equivalent of the internet and cloud combined. What we've done, Yvette, you've led our effort in terms of focusing on AI across all 20 of the JC2 companies. Umesh, you've done an amazing job of leading in AI, the top business-to-business native AI company in the industry, way over 100 million in ARR and growing at over 70% per year. So we'd like to share those experiences first with our own portfolio team. Then we will post the results, share it with the general public at large in terms of the feedback. And I encourage you all to give us candid feedback. Was this worthwhile? What did you like about it? Key lessons learned. If you come away with one good note from this, that it will change your strategy, then we've accomplished our goals. For the JC2 portfolio, a number of you are moving pretty rapidly, but I'm going to give you a little nudge to move even more rapidly. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is jump straight into the discussion. But as we do this, Yvette, as most of you know from the JC2 portfolio, she is one of our 4 key business partners and the organization. She also has responsibility for running the AI across all 20 of our companies. Think of her as an amazing CTO that can jump in and run the technical organization when any of our companies get into trouble, but also think of her as terms of a very good CEO capability, which you've done in 2 of our portfolio companies as well. Umesh, if I could ask you to do your 1 minute, 2 minute elevator pitch about Unifor, where you are on AI, what's your differentiation, size of the company.
Well, thank you, John. Unifor is a company that I founded 16 years ago. And 16 years ago, in 2008, we were founding a conversational AI company, probably way before the term AI was going to become common vocabulary in most people's language, etc.
Yes.
Today, Unifor is one of the world's largest B2B AI native companies in the world. We serve over 1,600 enterprises in over 20 countries. But the thing I'm most proud about is within those companies, 750,000 employees every day come and take benefit from an AI technology that Unifor has provided them either as a co-pilot or automating their tasks. That puts us as, in terms of scale, we've just crossed 150 million of ARR.
Congratulations. As a shareholder, I'm really happy.
Well, so am I. I'm proud of my team.
Yes.
We're growing at 70% year on year. And as we've seen, the macro has shifted for software as a service and software businesses in general. But AI is that one area where we're finding continued interest and a desire by enterprises around the world, especially Fortune 100, Fortune 500 customers, to innovate. Unifor started by doing conversational AI in areas like the call center, which were the first movers several years ago.
They were.
And then we expanded our horizons to seeing other parts of the enterprise where such AI technology can be, added, whether it was salespeople meeting their customers over virtual platforms, etc., marketing executives. Today, we are finding the opportunities across the entire enterprise. And Unifor is positioning itself as a true platform with a complete architecture to partner with enterprises along the lines of knowledge as a service, model as a service, and providing co-pilots to every single employee of that company.
What is exciting, and you will see when we discuss this, when we started focusing on AI at JC2 7 years ago, people didn't even spell AI in terms of understanding its implication. And then, as we all know, with the OpenAI and the Microsoft moves last November, it went front and center across the chasm very rapidly. Yvette, we realized at that time, while we had 6 AI companies in our portfolio, it needed to be not just those 6 reinventing themselves with tremendous speed, but also to bring it to the other 14 companies. Key message here is not subtle for the audience. It is every company, regardless of industry, will become an AI company. Like people used to talk about every company, whether you're in finance or manufacturing or healthcare, becoming a digital company. I think AI will be the future on it. And what we found is our groups were learning and having to reinvent the wheel again and again without sharing common lessons learned, but also at times didn't realize what they were doing, was it really differentiatable or not? So we gave you the challenge, which you volunteered for. Thank you, about going out and seeing where we are, share lessons learned across the board, and then begin to gain scale and confidence to change rapidly. So what did you find when you went out there? And remember, it's both for our own portfolio, but it's for others because the companies, whether you're startups or big companies, will face the same challenge. What were the things that you found were in pretty good shape? What are the things that you feel we have to improve on?
And John, I think that the key is what you said, which is everybody needs to be an AI company. So that's first of all. So there are a lot of companies that were there that were investing in AI, investing in optimizing pattern recognition algorithms, in creating their own tool sets and building outcomes. It's all about how is it that you make it better. And then there were others saying, well, AI is not really for me. I don't need it yet. And if you look at where we were, because this is before everybody understood and what AI can do, right?
Yes.
Now everybody can see that I can talk to a bot and that makes my user interface easier. So instead of going to a user interface and clicking all over to look for, let's say, employee data on an employee, I can just say, can you give me this information on Joe? And so everybody sees that's easy now with AI. But what about finding issues, finding things that we didn't look for before, doing manual tasks and automating those? There are so many opportunities to use AI. So I don't buy it that any company does not need AI. So I think that the biggest thing for us has been, first of all, to just help brainstorm where AI can fit.
Mhm.
The second thing is understanding how to make us differentiated, which I think is really important and deserves some discussion. Trust in AI, minimizing errors in AI, bias in AI. So all of this trust umbrella and security is really important. And then I think innovate. Don't stop. You don't stop and say, I've got it now. You have to keep going because this industry is changing so fast.
When you look at our companies, one of the things we pride ourselves in is being realistic on what we've done well, and rightly so, and how can others learn from it. But even more important, saying what were some of the common misperceptions or mistakes our companies were making. For me, when we put constructive pressure with a little bit of love on the companies that everybody's going to move to AI. There were some like Unifor that were already moving and reinventing. And I want to come to that in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
There were others that very quickly got how important this transition would be and came up with not just a strategy and vision, prioritization of resources are now getting the results. And there are others that, mainly because you're putting pressure on them, just said, I'll just check the box and I'll give you feedback on here's some of the AI things I'm doing. As you've learned from those very public companies in the market, if you haven't got a strategy and vision, if you're not well along in your execution, you can't show results, your stock doesn't move well. And probably Microsoft and ServiceNow did the best example of showing how those all come together in their groups. What were the common mistakes made? Lessons learned that we could share both with our own group, but also with the market as a whole?
And John, it's a good question because first of all, I'm not going to make any company do anything. I'm happy to share where we're at. I'm happy to suggest and even help dive in. But everybody has to come from within that you want to build your own strategy. And I would say that the first mistake is that I have yet to meet a person that doesn't think they're already doing the right thing. And so, I'm using AI. I'm not using AI because it's not time for me yet. Whatever the decision is, people think they're good. And this is a time in the entire technology space. This is not the time to be complacent. This is the time to jump on the bandwagon, lead the bandwagon, and be there first because everything is going to change. And whatever you were comfortable with, it's not comfortable tomorrow. So I would say the first mistake is getting over that mindset of you have to move and fast and disrupt. And then as soon as you disrupt, think about it the next day and do it again, right? The second thing is, I'm happy to share data about optimizing compute and minimizing costs. And building these models and training them is crazy expensive. Lowering latency and trust factors. There are so many areas where we can share. You have to want it, John. You have to want it, and there are things that I think will work tomorrow, but maybe not yet today. So you double up and make it people and AI until AI can take over. So I think that we just continue to go. We continue to try, but you need to disrupt yourselves. This is the time to really embrace change.
You know, it's easy for all of us to say we are moving rapidly and we are different. As a VC, I get to listen to everybody's AI pitch. And often when I listen to it, there's no differentiation. And they aren't only not in reinventing themselves, they aren't focused on outcomes for their customers, but also in terms of speed of change. Umesh, if you will, walk me through the transition. How many times have you reinvented yourself? How did you decide where you go first? When did you know it was time to make another change? Because you've probably done that better than any of our companies on these transitions. Share your path, if you will, and lessons learned.
So, John, you're leading me to a very important area. I've seen this industry transform in the last 16 years. And if somebody were to plot on a history line how Unifor's evolved in 16 years, it almost mimics how AI itself has come up. What's unique in the last 18 months is that the pace has accelerated to a point where all of us, data scientists, business leaders, everyone who's been part of AI, we haven't witnessed this pace of change that we are seeing in the last 18 months. And it's continues to accelerate. We haven't seen the peak of the velocity yet. So I'll give you a couple of examples, and then I'll come back to Unifor, what we've done to adjust. Before the announcement of ChatGPT or Microsoft announcing a big round of financing for OpenAI, the way enterprises and our customers consumed AI was they were buying AI as point solutions in different parts of their business. It could be a marketing solution with some AI included. It could be an HR solution with AI included. It could be a call center solution with AI included. And so the buyer within the enterprise was dispersed in business owners who had P&Ls. After ChatGPT, the one big change occurred was that AI is now a boardroom topic, a CEO topic, and a CIO prerogative. And now AI is being thought of being bought as a platform that will serve the whole company, as opposed to each individual leader buying their own AI solution. What has that done? Well, as soon as that change occurred and CIOs took the responsibility, I decided it was time for
And
me
that's key. CIOs took the responsibility. Before, we were selling mainly to the business units.
owners. Now, the
Yes.
business owners are still very important because they're going to benefit from AI, and they have to be convinced that they're going to benefit. But to keep everything that Yvette was talking about consistent with regulation and data privacy and really staying in control of their destiny as an enterprise, the CIO have taken the ownership of this topic. And as soon as that shift occurred, I knew it was time for me to stay very close to my customers and prospects because this was a changing scenario. Initially, I saw CIOs coming to the conclusion almost that they needed one big model, one big LLM for their enterprise. And they're going to partner with somebody who's going to take their data and create an intelligent AI model for the entire enterprise on which applications will be run. That was a big pivotal shift on strategy because it was giving more and more power to people like the hyperscalers who could have said, I can give you the compute, I can give you my model, and I can be a good partner to you. Then fast evolution. EU puts out an AI Regulatory Act. White House puts out a white paper. All those companies and the CIOs begin to realize that what is our IP? Where will our data reside? If I have to tomorrow be answerable in a court of law because of the way regulation is written, that an AI in my company created a decision, let's say in a financial services, an underwriting decision, and the customer is unhappy with it, I have to be answerable to the court of law. If the underlying LLM that I'm putting out is a black box, if I don't control it, then I'm not in control of the destiny. So what have I started to hear in the last few months? Oh, that we, instead of going with a large model, we're going to create a bunch of small models, very specialized to specialized tasks. I don't think either of those are the final answers here. But what I'm getting at is that the buyers themselves are evolving their understanding, their state of expectation from vendors like us at such a fast pace. And so to be good partners to them, we have to be ahead of the game for them. We have to tell them almost consultatively what we've seen work for others. We have read the regulation before you have. We have experts in our company who are working on your behalf. Here's a strategy that we think can work well, but by the way, here's option B and here's option C. Here are the tools that you need. Here are the technologies that you need. Here are decisions important for you to make. And the key thing I'm coming to realize like my customers, that it's all starting with where is their data. Just last week, I was with one of the largest insurers in the whole world, and I was invited to make a presentation to their entire leadership team, their operations leader, their IT leader, their CFO in the room, etc. And I was very surprised, John. One of the comments made in the room when I said, you have to stay in control of your destiny. You need sovereignty on your AI, and you need to think about using your own data to fine tune or train models. The comment in the room was, but we don't have enough data. And I said, think about what you just said. You're the largest, one of the largest insurance companies in the world with trillions of dollars of assets under management. If you believe you don't have data, then who does? And that tells me something about the state of affairs. We need new tools, new technologies to help those businesses bring their data at a place and in a way that they feel confident that they can start to train or fine tune these models, and then with speed roll out applications to the frontline employees on their models, because that is what is going to be needed to be in compliance with the upcoming regulation. And we haven't seen the last word yet, even on regulation.
Oh, just getting started.
Umesh, I have to say, I know so many companies that say the opposite, but to the same exact outcome. I have so much data, I don't know what to do with all of it. And so I can't feed data into a model because it's all unstructured. I don't even understand it, right? So I think that there are a couple of things that we can really have as differentiators for our JC2 companies, which is how do we take that unstructured data and really make something of it? And the second thing is, I think it's super important for us to really embrace this compliance. This compliance is real. It's changing all the time. State compliance, federal compliance, country level compliance. Compliance for AI is only getting started. So it's one of those trust factors, and along with all of the actual AI performance that I think that we can have as a differentiator. And that's one thing I ask everybody to think about is what's our differentiation, even if you have the same product, in the way that you implement AI and address compliance. And then I think the third thing is simple, simple, simple. I'll tell you, I was building AI. I'm a mathematician by trade, and so I was writing AI algorithms a very long time ago. I'm not going to say the year. And it was hard. We had to write the math algorithms, do it on a whiteboard, figure out the pattern recognition and how it is that we're going to that we're going to find whatever it is that we're trying to find. And it was a lot of fun, but we had to do every stage, noise reduction and various pattern algorithms. Now it's no code, low code, and then you're taking that on top of the tools and building easy tools for outcomes. I'm interested in what you're doing to differentiate there, because that's a really important topic, I think, as well.
It truly is. And I once again take it back to what are my customers saying to me and how do I react with tools and technologies and my offerings to them. My customers are telling me that they're almost in a state of panic. On the one side, they know they got to move really fast. And in one case, a female top executive at one of these financial services firms asked me the question, Umesh, so how much time do I have to make this decision on which model am I moving? The question itself was leading me to believe she's feeling the panic. On the other side, she also knows she doesn't have perfect information to make long-term decisions. And these are expensive bets to make. Partnering with companies, developing models or fine-tuning models requires creating budgets of tens of millions, or in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes.
And they're concerned that they might go down a path and in 6 months, new innovation, new technology appears, and their decisions don't look good. And so I take it back to the right tools, the right technology. But John, you and I have discussed, this feels like the internet is emerging and we're all the way back to 1997.
Except at a much faster pace.
At a much faster pace. Every business knows they have to be an AI company, just like they knew back then they had to be a .com company. In 1997, the big incumbents, Cisco, IBM, HP, Oracle, were believed to have the biggest advantage. But emerged in a couple of years, companies like Salesforce and ServiceNow and Facebook, which is Meta now. What you've also told me is back then, your customers were looking to you to help them come up with these solutions. How quickly should I move? What should be my long-term decisions? The answers they were looking for were probably sometimes beyond Cisco's product toolkit. And to address that, you told me you created this consulting group, the Internet Solution Strategy Group.
Mhm.
What I'm realizing is my customers are almost expecting the same thing of me. We have the toolkits to help them move their data from unstructured to structured in a fast way. We've created no-code, low-code ways of writing these co-pilots. But much before they can even start using those tools, they want strategy help. They want help with understanding the topic. And so we are moving in the direction of replicating what I'm personally doing right now, spending a lot of time almost pro bono, being an advisor to my customers. And we're creating a small but very empowered advisory group
Mhm.
that will lead before our sales team even goes selling tools and helping customers build a roadmap, things that they should know about, things that they should articulate as risks, help them put together a strategy document on which they should make technology decisions. We hope the technology decision includes our toolkit,
Mhm.
but even if it doesn't, we want to be good partners to them, helping them think through all the options in front of them.
You know, what's amazing is how quickly this has moved. Yvette, you were in several of the sessions that I was having a fireside chat with key CEOs, et cetera. And as recently as 6 months ago, asking a group of top-notch CIOs, top security people, et cetera, I said, how many of your CEOs have AI as one of their top 3 priorities and not only care about on differentiation, but worried about? And a surprisingly less than 10% of the room raised their hand. And I was almost in shock when that
I
occurred.
remember.
And the good news was I was interviewing 2 CEOs that I knew well, and I knew where they were on AI. And I said, do you agree? And both of them said, no, it's in our top 3, and here's why. The point that you're making is we have customers that are in all different stages of acceptance of AI. The role with the business units taking the lead is now combining with the role of the CIO on what's the architecture and the overall plan. The sense of urgency for if I haven't got not just a good strategy, but if I'm not already getting results, it's going to affect your stock regardless of which industry is there. And so the CIOs are beginning to think about architecturally, how do we play it? That's where I think, Umesh, you have a chance, and we'll see if you can do it, that it is an instant replay of the internet, where one person did switching, routing, movement to the data center, security, et cetera, and processing capability, and others stayed in silos. And to the point that you're making, are you selling individual products, which is okay? The customers want outcome, and they want architecture and flexibility. I think most companies will probably pick 2 or 3 players here. How do you position your company for being one of the 2 or 3 they pick, and how close am I to it? And you know where I'm going with that. How do we also see that conversation changing in the board of director room? Because when I pitch to the top consultancy companies who have in the room 100 or 200 board members of Fortune 100 companies, they are way ahead of times of the CEO. They want to know where's the company strategy, what are the implications for security violations that they have to report and be accountable for in literally 4 days and direction. So let's talk about how does this change. I'll start with you, and then Yvette, if you'll take it the next step.
John, clearly in today's world, Unifor is positioned in front of an enterprise as one of probably the only example. We think we're in the club of one. A company who's been working on AI for the last 16 years has had 1,600 enterprises with referenceable business outcome case studies in 13 different industries, whether it's a banking customer or telecom customer. And by the way, we service customers in 20 different countries. AI is a very localized topic because of language and linguistics. And so there isn't anyone out there that we know of that has the breadth of experience and the technology. We then partner with customers by saying Unifor is the only player that has tools to take your unstructured data and make it structured such that it's ready for consumption in AI models. We call it knowledge as a service. We convert your data to knowledge. We then offer the customers a service which is a model as a service, where we tell the customer you have the full freedom to choose either an open source model, a proprietary model, or our model. And the truth is those models are going to get more and more commoditized as time goes by. They will get specialized in specific tasks. Where Unifor specializes is our models have been trained for 16 years with enterprise data for specific business outcomes. And so chances are, if you're looking at a use case in call centers, in marketing, in sales, anything on the front line where you want AI to be applied, a Unifor model is likely to perform better than anything that wasn't trained on enterprise data, but just trained on internet data, etc. And so on the top, we then offer these customers applications such as copilots and self-service bots. But not only are we selling those applications, we are selling business outcomes. We're telling them each time a customer of ours in the last 16 years has gone with us on a call center solution or a sales solution, here was how they were able to see the impact. So we summarize our positioning as Unifor being the only company who has seen the scale, who has the experience, which is a full platform architecture from knowledge, models, applications. It's not a single application. It cuts across your entire company. We can partner with you if you're a multinational organization. We can service you in every part of the world. And we are the only one who has real credible case studies and business outcomes. And that puts us in a very rare club. We think it's a club of one.
So the exciting thing is each time we've moved into new technology, it's actually one of the startups that ended up being the leader. This time we're seeing it different with Google and Meta and Amazon and Microsoft and Apple moving at the same time. But what you've built is an architecture with flexibility. Realistic that people aren't going to sign up to the whole game, especially with one just partner, but you have a land and expand type of approach, and then the customer can architecturally fit it into where they want to go. Now, two of the companies that will be watching this, and then the market as a whole, that are our JC2 startups, are basically what you've seen done with Pindrop and voice authentication, but more importantly with the deepfakes, and then what you've seen with Safe Securities with what Sachdev has done in the area of taking a standard open GPT type approach and really changed their strategy a lot. So Yvette, when you think about it, first Pindrop that took the architecture and did the deepfakes identification of the company behind it, and then they could find the user behind it, could verify because our voice has, I think it's 8,000 different samples in 1 second. In 5 seconds, you can tell if it is a human, if it's a machine, if it's a recording of a human, is it the right human, etc. on it. But what they did is use AI to be able to counter AI being used in the deepfakes and move with tremendous speed. And so they found their sweet spot there that is going to be huge, especially in the elections and with financial terms and trust in society. And then at the other end, you have Sachdev, who was one of our youngest members of our team, who's moved with tremendous speed, who's changed directions now, his company 3 times in a positive way. And now he's to the point where they view him as the top risk analysis for cyber insurance. They view him as the capability for saying, what is the company doing? What has to be done differently? Growing at literally 85% year over year in terms of annual recurring revenue, over 170%, including their acquisitions. Kind of for the audience, separate what both of them did right, and in a fun way, what might they have done better?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the pin drop and voice authentication, and I'm going to also feed on what you said, Umesh, because I think it all ties in on something that's really, really important to get well, which is you have to build a platform. So earlier you said the businesses used to control their own destiny. They would pick a product, they would launch that product, they would go tell a CIO, make this happen. CIO was worried about building, maybe IaaS, PaaS, making sure you don't have shadow IT, and everything's tucked in the right place, cost management and those things. It has shifted, right? It is now the CIO is in charge of the AI platform, making sure that things are consistent, making sure that the trust, the compliance, all of this comes down on the CIO. The brand management and the errors and biases comes down to the board and CEO. So things have shifted to new places as to how your technology decisions are making. So think about Pindrop. You can use the same platform to do fraud detection, to do authentication. There are many different ways for applications that you can use that platform. So the first thing is building a platform, not just building a solution. It has to be bigger in thought than building a platform. And keep in mind that the actual implementers have changed, and that is here to stay. On the board stuff, I think this is really interesting because you look at a board and you think boards are responsible for strategy, risk management, financial oversight, right? A lot of oversight, a lot of risk management. And I think one of the things that Sachdev did as he really looked at what it is that he, keep in mind, he was a hacker, right? The first
Yes,
thing
he
he
was.
did is,
He didn't tell me that when I invested in him, but he told me that afterwards. Yeah.
yeah. So he would pay people to say, let me hack your system and I'll tell you all the stuff that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's a view of one time. Not saying it's not valuable.
Mhm.
It's just a view of once. Board members want to do risk assessment. I don't want to know, how safe I was a year ago.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter. It's how safe I am ongoing.
Yeah.
So to take this platform and build something that is a SaaS platform that's heavily built in AI, that tells you in a simple, consistent, repeatable, always way as to how safe you are. The second thing that I think he did really, really well is he realized, and this comes to the earlier questions you have, which is what should you realize? What are people doing wrong? He realized, I can't do this. I have to have a neutral source. So the FAIR Institute taking and making a neutral source to say nonprofit, all open, allows everybody to pick up the same thing. So you have a neutral source that defines a standard. Insurance companies, how am I going to pay less or more based on your cyber methodology, quantification, situation, being able to tell boards very clearly, what is your risk assessment? How do I compare to other companies that are in your portfolio? How can I quantify the risk financially? If by doing this or not doing it. So I think we're finally getting there to take a very complicated topic and give meaningful, right, and repeatable data to boards, to executives. I think it matters for everybody, and it all ties together, right? Because the CIO, the CISO, right, they have responsibility, and you can't overcomplicate this and give a bunch of. If I can tell you every tool I'm using and the fact of how many phishing cases I have and how much training I did, but how does a board member know to do anything with that?
So key takeaways here, and I'm going to center in on it for a moment. The first thing that people have to realize is the power is coming back to the CIO for having an architecture in place and how you use the data. Now, we all three have great CIO friends. The challenge is if the CIOs can't produce outcomes with the benefit of AI, who the CEO is now moving at a faster pace than the CIO is, about getting the outcomes, that power will go a different way, and the role of the CIO will have to emerge at a faster pace in terms of the direction. To the point that you made, people need to focus on outcomes that are differentiatable as opposed to features and capabilities that just balance it. And the board of directors is getting ahead of even the CEOs about here's what I expect to have happen. I always like to look at key lessons learned in your business careers. So I'm going to ask a general question of both of you, and then the follow-up question. What's the one thing that you wish that you knew 12 years ago that you now know that you would have done things different on? Same thing for you from that side on the companies. And then the next question I'm going to do is, given how fast, at first we couldn't even get many people in the industry, all of whom are really close friends of ours, to say how fast AI is coming. And then once it did, it moved with tremendous speed. What was the lesson learned in the last 18 months or 36 months that you do differently? Let's answer the first one, just a lesson in management. And then the second one about lessons in AI that if you had it to do over, you would do differently. Yvette, would you go first?
I'm happy to. I think that for me, it's always the same. If I would have asked the same question some years before the last time, it's gosh, just go faster, be bolder, and just get results, and I think that we have the most fun that way. And we're always ahead and we always stay ahead. So I think that we have a very big business. We need to assess, we need to think about these things through. Sometimes you just go. And I've seen very large, very sophisticated, very compliant companies go fast, and it is fun to watch.
From your side.
John, I run a startup. By definition, we move fast. So I will give the other side of this coin as my answer. We were fortunate to make some important decisions very early on, right from when the company was being formed in 2008, that data was going to be important for us. And we had our customers agreeing with us. As long as we were careful, anonymizing and aggregating their data, they knew the only way we as an AI player can help them is by using the data to fine-tune our models and make our models better and better. We were moving fast. We made the right decision, which is why we are, today at a very strong position. Having said that, we could have been even faster in communicating the value of those models and that data to the customer. There was a period when the customer only wanted to buy applications with some business outcomes and ROI in a point solution type of way, call center being separate, sales being separate. And we played that way. We worked with the market, we sold each application separately. We could have been the company explaining to them that there's going to be a platform shift. AI is a platform topic, not an application topic, etc. And so I take that as a learning that despite knowing, being in the industry, what was going to shift, we almost waited for ChatGPT to occur, for the customers to realize, and then we said, good news is we are ready for you. We've been thinking about this for a long time. The other thing I'd say, which is being self-critical, is in the era of drinking our own champagne.
Yes.
If we want to be the biggest enterprise AI company in the world, which is the path that I'm putting my team on, then we have to be the biggest users of AI within our own company. Now, we've done a whole lot.
Unifor on Unifor.
Unifor on Unifor.
Cisco on Cisco. We've seen the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we've done a whole lot. We pushed our engineers to use AI and gain efficiency on writing code. We pushed marketing to use AI to generate new content, as opposed to relying on individuals around the world, etc. But we don't do half as good a job as we should be in pushing the envelope within the company, trying out new things. We should almost be the lab for our customers and trying out new things, even if they don't work in the first instance. And that's down to finding bandwidth. That's down to making it a priority. And that's something that I made the shift very recently in the company.
You know, what's fascinating, I hope the takeaway for those of you in the audience, if you agree with everything the three of us have said today, we failed miserably. We want to educate you, share both what we've done well, what we have to do differently, but also if you really think about the commonalities, this is an outcome-based approach to the market, and you need to focus on outcomes in everything you do. And you've got to move with tremendous speed, but I would argue with a process behind it, and I used to think process was bureaucracy. Actually, as you've taught me, that process has tremendous ability to move even faster as you drive it through. So as you think about your future, whether you're a large enterprise, whether you're a hot startup on it, industry expertise, or a student that's now out there looking for a job, our commonality of views here is we want you to dream bigger. Realize this is the biggest transition that's going to occur, not something we've been saying for 18 months, but 7 years. Also, as you begin to think about it, you want to be customer driven in the approach. And you've got to think about how you are different. What you saw, Yvette, when we went out to our 20 companies, almost everybody said, yeah, I've got my AI strategy together. Right. When you got underneath the hoods, it was not differentiable with most of them. And so for those who were in AI from the beginning, that differentiation is something that people had to have time to say it really is effective as we think. And then with the large companies, they think they're doing AI differently till you begin to look, there isn't that much difference across the board. So I'm going to challenge you to really dream bigger, to think what's possible, how are you different, and think about, are you spending your time in areas that are going to really move the needle for your company, or are you spending your time on nice to-dos? I'd love to have the feedback from the group. Did you consider the session worthwhile? What would you like to hear differently from us? And it's an honor sharing the views with the viewership today. Thank you very much, Umesh. Yvette, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.